I'm anti-tax, but I'm pro-carbon tax. If you don't have sustainable energy, you have unsustainable energy. The fundamental value of a company like Tesla is the degree to which it accelerates the advent of sustainable energy faster than it would otherwise occur. Biofuels such as ethanol require enormous amounts of cropland and end up displacing either food crops or natural wilderness, neither of which is good. The future of humanity is going to bifurcate in two directions. Either it's going to become multiplanetary, or it's going to remain confined to one planet, and eventually there's going to be an extinction event. If you want to grow a giant redwood, you need to make sure the seeds are okay. Nurture the sapling, and work out what might potentially stop it from growing all the way along. Anything that breaks it at any point stops that growth. The goal of Tesla is to accelerate sustainable energy. So we're going to take a step back and think about what's most likely to achieve that goal. I had so many people try to talk me out of starting a rocket company. It was crazy. I've actually made a prediction that within 30 years a majority of new cars made in the United States will be electric. And I don't mean hybrid, I mean fully electric. The reason we should do a carbon tax is because it's the right thing to do. It's Economics 101, elementary stuff. I do think there is a lot of potential if you have a compelling product, and people are willing to pay a premium for that. I think that is what Apple has shown. You can buy a much cheaper cell phone or laptop, but Apple's product is so much better than the alternative, and people are willing to pay that premium. With DNA, you have to be able to tell which genes are turned on or off. Current DNA sequencing cannot do that. The next generation of DNA sequencing needs to be able to do this. If somebody invents this, then we can start to very precisely identify cures for diseases. The space shuttle was often used as an example of why you shouldn't even attempt to make something reusable. But one failed experiment does not invalidate the greater goal. If that was the case, we'd never have had the light bulb. A battery, by definition, is a collection of cells. So the cell is a little can of chemicals, and the challenge is taking a very high energy cell, and a large number of them, and combining them safely into a large battery. You could warm Mars up over time with greenhouse gases. I tend to approach things from a physics framework, and physics teaches you to reason from first principles rather than by analogy. I don't spend my time pontificating about high concept things. I spend my time solving engineering and manufacturing problems. Land on Mars, a round-trip ticket, $500,000. It can be done. If you think back to the beginning of cell phones, laptops, or really any new technology, it's always expensive. I was born in Africa. I came to California because it's really where new technologies can be brought to fruition. And my opinion is it's a bridge too far to go to fully autonomous cars. It is theoretically possible to warp space-time itself so you're not actually moving faster than the speed of light, but it's actually space that's moving. Nobody wants to buy a $60,000 electric Civic, but people will pay $90,000 for an electric sports car. We are the first species capable of self-annihilation. There are really two things that have to occur in order for a new technology to be affordable to the mass market. One is you need economies of scale. The other is you need to iterate on the design. You need to go through a few versions. I'm trying to construct a world that maximizes the probability that SpaceX continues its mission without me. Generally, the view that I've had on Twitter is if you're on Twitter, you're in, like the meme, you're in meme war land. If you're on Twitter, you're in the arena. And so, essentially, if you attack me, it is therefore okay for me to attack back. The fuel cell is just a fundamentally inferior way of delivering electrical energy to an electric motor than batteries. In order to have your voice be heard in Washington, you have to make some little contribution. The key to making things affordable is design and technology improvements, as well as scale. I'm a Silicon Valley guy. I just think people from Silicon Valley can do anything. The United States is definitely ahead in culture of innovation. If someone wants to accomplish great things, there is no better place than the US. I usually describe myself as an engineer. That's in order for us to have a future that's exciting and inspiring, it has to be one where we're a space-bearing civilization. I do think there should be some regulations on AI. In the early days of aviation, there was a great deal of experimentation and a high death rate. I'd like to dial it back 5% or 10% and try to have a vacation that's not just email with a view. A utility can handle up to 20% of production from solar, and that helps the grid because it produces electricity when needed. Solar power peaks in the middle of the day, and that's also when air conditioning is running and businesses are operating. So power production matches usage. What most people know, but don't realize they know, is that the world is almost entirely solar powered already. If the sun wasn't there, we'd be a frozen ice ball at 3 degrees Kelvin. And the sun powers the entire system of precipitation. The whole ecosystem is solar powered. From an evolutionary standpoint, human consciousness has not been around very long. A little light just went on after 4.5 billion years. How often does that happen? Maybe it is quite rare. I care very deeply about the people at Tesla. I feel like I have a great debt to the people of Tesla who are making the company successful. I've been to Disneyland like 10 times. I'm getting really tired of Disneyland. I'm glad to see that BMW is bringing an electric car to market. That's cool. I've actually not read any books on time management. America is the spirit of human exploration distilled. As you heat the planet up, it's just like boiling a pot. Over time, I think we will probably see a closer merger of biological intelligence and digital intelligence. It is definitely true that the fundamental enabling technology for electric cars is lithium-ion as a cell chemistry technology. In the absence of that, I don't think it's possible to make an electric car that is competitive with a gasoline car. Particularly Instagram, people look like they have a much better life than they really do. People basically seem like they are way better looking than they really are. And they are way happier seeming than they really are. I'm reasonably optimistic about the future, especially the future of the United States, for the century at least. Winning Motor Trend Car of the Year is probably the closest thing to winning the Oscar or Emmy of the car industry. If you had to buy a new plane every time you flew somewhere, it would be incredibly expensive. There's nothing. I've bought everything I want. I don't like yachts or anything. You know, I'm not a yacht person, and I've got pretty much the nicest plane I'd want to have. If anyone thinks they'd rather be in a different part of history, they're probably not a very good student of history. Life sucked in the old days. People knew very little, and you were likely to die at a young age of some horrible disease. You'd probably have no teeth by now. It would be particularly awful if you were a woman. On one of the SpaceX flights, we had a secret payload, a wheel of cheese. We flew to orbit and brought it back, so it was the world's first space cheese. It was, in part, a tribute to Monty Python. My vision is for a fully reusable rocket transport system between Earth and Mars that is able to refuel on Mars. This is very important, so you don't have to carry the return fuel when you go there. Stationary storage will be as big as the car business long term. The growth rate will probably be several times what it is for the car business. The problem with car dealerships is you've already decided what you want to buy before you even go there, and you're really just going there to talk through some annoying negotiation. Trying to read our DNA is like trying to understand software code, with only 90% of the code riddled with errors. It's very difficult in that case to understand and predict what that software code is going to do. If we could do high-speed rail in California, just half a notch above what they've done on the Shanghai line in China, and if we had a straight path from lab to San Francisco, as well as the Milk Run, at least that would be progress. Mars is the only place in the solar system where it's possible for life to become multi-planetarian. We polled Tesla owners, do you want autopilot disabled or not?